All right, so let's talk movies. We have Save Yourselves, which I mentioned. Rated R, hour 33 minutes. Sci-fi comedy came out on streaming services, I believe, October 2nd of this year, 2020. The synopsis: a young Brooklyn couple heads to an upstate cabin to unplug from their phones and reconnect with each other. Blissfully unaware of their surroundings, they are left to their own devices as the planet falls under attack. It's directed by Alex Houston Fischer and Eleanor Wilson, also written by Alex Houston Fischer and Eleanor Wilson. They don't have any like major big time credits to speak of, but it feels like this is, we've talked about a couple movies where it just feels like a great stepping stone to something bigger and just better. Not to say that this was bad, but like with a little more budget, who knows where it could have gone. So like The Vast of Night is another one that comes to mind. There was another one that we reviewed that I thought was going to be like, okay, this is very promising feature debut. They've got a bright future ahead. And I think you could say the same for this duo, Alex Fischer and Eleanor Wilson. The cast, Sunita Mani. So not a household name, but you would recognize the face. She plays Sue in this movie. She was Arthie in Glow. Because the whole time I'm looking at her, I'm like, that's how my brain works. I see a face that I somewhat recognize, and I can't focus on any of the dialogue, anything, until I figure out where's this person from for the first like half hour of this movie. And then eventually I was just like, I gotta shake this off because I'm missing key plot points. So she was Artie in Glow. She was Trenton in Mr. Robot. She's in those GEICO commercials where it's like the sign guy at home and she's like the girlfriend, I guess, maybe the roommate. I don't know. Maybe they're not romantically involved. She was in Search Party, which I watched a few episodes of that on TBS, and I don't know. Maybe I have to give it another shot. She was also in The Good Place and the music video for Turn Down for What? One of my favorite songs and music videos of all time. You can, wherever you put that on, I don't care if I'm at a fucking funeral. I'm getting jiggy with it. She had a great performance. John Reynolds as Jack. He was in Stranger Things, Search Party, Miracle Workers, and High Maintenance. Ben Sinclair as Raph. You also remember him from High Maintenance. It's that show about the weed dealer who in, I guess, Brooklyn. It was originally on Vimeo and then it went to HBO. And then you have a bunch of other people. I mean, I'm not going to get into it. Although Amy Sedaris plays Jack's mom, it's just her voice. So you don't get to see her. But I was like, that voice sounds familiar. And then that took me out of the movie for another 5-10 minutes. The critics' consensus from Rotten Tomatoes: Save Yourselves doesn't do anything unexpected with its one joke premise, but fortunately that one joke turns out to be consistently funny anyway. And I remember reading that initially and I was like, I don't know if I'm in the mood for like one joke told a million different ways. And even though I understand what they're saying with that sentiment, it didn't feel that way. It didn't feel repetitive or monotonous. Like, okay, you said that already. Okay, you said that already. It really didn't feel that way. So I think that the way that they pulled it off, I don't know that it was just a one note, one joke type movie. Because in my mind, I was thinking, are all the jokes going to revolve around the aliens? Because as you find out, spoiler, the aliens are like these poof-like creatures. I mean, it's in the trailer, so it's like I'm not spoiling anything. So I'm like, oh, is that going to be the fucking joke? That these terrifying aliens are like these cute poofs? Is that the joke? And it turns out, no, that's not the joke. It's mostly a joke about, I guess you would say millennials, but like one of the, the younger-ish generations that are now getting older and now trying to transition from post-college life into marriage and kids and, responsibility, house, car, all that stuff. And which is a little more, I mean, you're talking about an entire generation. I don't think that's one joke. I think there's plenty of jokes that can be made at their expense. I guess I'm an elder millennial because there's like this 2-year crossover period, maybe like 2 to 4 year crossover period between Generation X and millennials. And I'm like right in the sweet spot. So it all depends on who you're shitting on. If you're shitting on Gen X, I'm an elder millennial. If you're shitting on millennials, I'm a young Generation X. But yeah, I did not get that sense at all. Like, oh, they're telling this joke again. There are plenty of movies that do that, and it's just like, wow, this is the entire movie. But no, I didn't get that from this. 87% of critics gave it a favorable rating with a 6.7 out of 10 average rating. 60% of the audience gave it a favorable review with a 3.52 out of 5 rating. So yeah, I'd throw it right in the middle of that. In the 70s, I'd say, for sure. And I think a lot of people just had problems with the pacing So the cons, I guess we'll talk about the cons. The pacing maybe a little slow for their taste, considering it is advertised as kind of a end of the world apocalyptic alien invasion movie, and that's how it's marketed. But that's more of a plot driver. It's the impetus for the two leads, Jack and Sue, to grow. Really, I mean, it's just a plot device. It's nothing more than that. I mean, it's trying to get them to out of their comfort zone and to be more open and vulnerable and transparent. And it's more of a rom-com relationship movie than it is, this end of the world apocalypse survival movie. So, maybe the trailer didn't do a good enough job of doing that. And maybe people felt betrayed because they were like, I want an alien invasion movie. That's funny. And it's like, this was. But, it was more about coming to terms with adulthood, maturity, your shortcomings, knowing that, a lot of what you were told maybe when you were a kid is not entirely true, and what you expected yourself to be, you're falling short of, that kind of thing. I'm not speaking out of personal experience or anything. So what do the critics have to say? Just as their search for authenticity is about to turn into a Reddit relationships post, a bunch of murderous poofball aliens descend on Earth, and Jack and Sue unexpectedly find the meaning and connection they seek in their own fight for survival. Yeah, that's a pretty good synopsis. Maybe if they threw that on there, people would have been a little more, not less betrayed, or, there'd be less, more audience retention. We're talking about YouTube. It's all about meeting expectations, setting expectations and meeting expectations. I personally liked the low budget nature of things. Sometimes you get with a lot of alien invasion movies, there's this pressure to like make the aliens look realistic and make the attacks look realistic and make everything try and look realistic. And this felt realer than a lot of, alien invasion movies that I can think of, because it's like, yeah, they were just completely disconnected from everyone. They turned off their phones. They were not watching TV. They just were really trying to connect with each other. And of course, when they do that, that's when all hell breaks loose. And so it was clever how they were finding out, or how they found out the planet was under attack. It was basically like, okay, Sue eventually caves, and there's like a million missed texts and voicemails, and it's all communicating what's happening. And I thought that was such a clever way of doing it, as opposed to, what we've seen in a War of the Worlds and all the other movies, where it's like we actually see the attacks. But I know that's what gets a lot of people off. That's what fulfills their bloodlust. Manny and Reynolds, the two lead actors, are an excellent on-screen couple that you want to spend time with. Absolutely. I picked up on their chemistry. And at one part, my wife is like, this is us. And she wasn't talking about the show on NBC. She was like, this is us. Like, this right here. This is us. And I was like, yeah, we need to talk. Another critic said, there's only one joke in Save Yourselves. This hapless generation is doomed, but the survival comedy is delightful from start to apocalypse. So clever. I identified with Jack in a lot of ways. He was talking about how he's trying to learn how to be a man, but there's when, at least when I was growing up, there's this concept of masculinity, and like, I have not fulfilled that by any means, by any stretch. Like, not good with my hands, don't build things, like construction wise. I enjoy, the blue collar lifestyle, but I don't know if I would call myself blue collar, but I do identify or relate. I don't know. But he's saying how his dad was like Mr. Machismo, macho man, kind of Randy Savage. And his brothers were very into like this, like all things male, which I'm not saying I wasn't, I was, but in terms of like changing a tire and, DIY bullshit, where it's like, you're fixing things around the house. I'm not wired that way. And I don't think my dad was wired that way either. I think it was like, my dad was more prone to like, let's just watch football. I was like, all right, yeah, I'm good with that. You don't have to show me how to fish. Fishing, fuck. I'll just go to the market, get some sushi. So yeah, I identify with Jack on that. And then, Sue, I think Cass identified with her just because it was like, there's probably this burning desire to connect. And if you're not connecting the way you are, like, you start to entertain these listicles you find on the internet, like all these articles that you read, trying to find answers online, and then you try to implement that into your life. I feel like that hit home. So now we're getting into trivia. This is the trivia section of the review. Information about the Pouffes is intentionally withheld as the writers thought it was more realistic for people to know very little about the invading aliens. What we do know is little more than speculation. And I thought that was excellent. That's awesome. Because there's always that one scene, expository scene where it's like, this is what they look like. And this is how you kill them. And this and this and this. And it's just so like laid out for you that it feels a little too convenient. Whereas this, it's like, these are just Pouffes. They're like attracted to booze and alcohol, which they're able to put together on their own, which I thought was nice. Like, okay, the whiskey's gone. Our gasoline is gone. This sourdough reduction, whatever thing that he was trying to pull off is gone, which I guess yeast is like alcohol, right? Oh, what was what our friend said? Yeast, alcohol is yeast shitting out sugar. I mean, yum, yum, yum. Get in my cum. And then there's some spoiler trivia. You can fast forward a little bit if you want. When Jack reaches to touch the pod in the woods, baby Jack does also. This was not in the script. The baby just did it on his own. I mean, yeah. The baby is also played by triplets, which I never understood. Like, how do you get your baby into acting? I can understand like your 6 or 7 year old is like, I want to act. And it's like, all right, we'll give it a shot. The baby though? Like, how does the baby know? Like if you have, I guess if you have twins or triplets, you just get a call or like an email from Hollywood being like, hey, a lot of money to be made off those twins, those triplets, those quintuplets, those identicals you got going on there. I assume. I don't know. I'd love to know more about that, but also would not love to know more because I'm sure it's not doesn't put them in a good light. According to the directors, the ending is a response to a frustration with other alien invasion movies. Usually the humans figure out everything about the aliens and defeat them, but this ending especially leaves them with very few answers. The directors felt this was more realistic. Okay, I get it. The whole open to interpretation thing, so that it continues the discussion, it continues the conversation, like what happens next? What do you think happens next? Leaving it open-ended like that. Okay, I get it. I mean, and if you want to be honest, they did kind of set it up in the beginning of the movie. And I won't specifically say how they set up the ending in the beginning, but once you've seen it, maybe you'll recall it and you'll be like, Neal, you were right. There's also some theories. So this is a spoiler theory. Baby Jack apparently has a history that doesn't appear in the film. According to the writers, directors, the people that Jack and Sue find him with are not his parents, but other people that found him earlier. He has been found several times and passed down like a lucky charm. I thought that was a interesting take. Yeah, because you look at that kid and you're like, you're too cute to be that kid of those two, that couple. Save yourselves. As a thumbs up recommendation from me. Nice little date movie because it's even though I'm assuming that most, it was a little bit of a tough sell for my wife because it's like it comes off as like this big budget action blockbuster from like the poster frame, the thumbnail, and then even the synopsis to a certain degree. But then, you watch the trailer and I think once she realized it was more about relationships, she got a lot more into it. So good date movie, I guess you'd say.